Welcome to the Soulful Success Podcast, where we're redefining what it means to live, lead, and succeed. I'm Kyle Dion, a mentor and guide for visionaries and conscious creators who are ready to bridge personal growth, spiritual depth, and practical success. Each week, I'll share honest conversations and grounded insights to help you elevate your life, not by doing more, but by becoming more of who you truly are. This is where ambition meets alignment, and where the next evolution of success begins. Welcome to Soulful Success. Hello, and thank you for being here with me today. I hope you've been having a great day so far. For today's episode, what we're going to talk about is something that I know I had a hard time with when I was not starting, but in the midst of some of my personal growth development in my journey, and really trying to understand why my insights weren't translating into lived experience. And I think that that's one piece that often goes overlooked in the space, is that we can know ourselves very well. We can understand our patterns, our beliefs, and all these different things, but the understanding alone doesn't translate into action. And sometimes that, or maybe not the accurate action, maybe I should say, but knowing ourselves doesn't actually mean that we're going to start living in alignment. So there is that gap between self-awareness and lived behavior. And so we're going to spend some time examining that in more detail here today. So maybe you already have noticed this, or you're already living into this in some sort of way, in the sense where, you have a good understanding of, you know who you are. You've done the work, you understand yourself, your patterns, your beliefs, what you want, all these different things. Or maybe, you're at the point where you've developed a lot of insights into how you act, why you behave and do these different things. You understand your patterns and all these things, but yet life doesn't change. And that's completely normal. That happens for all of us. And in my opinion, whether or not we bridge this gap that I'm about to speak on is really whether we do start to live in alignment or not. Because this is one of the big pieces that I think goes unsaid, but it's very, very integral in our own development as a whole. So if you have a lot of insights, you're very aware of yourself, you've been spending a lot of time on it, but it hasn't translated into the alignment piece that you want and you're looking for, that's completely fine. There's nothing wrong with that. I just want to share that knowing yourself doesn't automatically mean that you trust yourself. And that's a very, very important here. Because what happens is when we're going through this journey, we're growing, and we start to live, or try to start to live in alignment, we start to think, oh, maybe I just need more courage, or maybe I need more motivation, or maybe I'm procrastinating, right? And the good thing is that we are focused on ourselves, but we're focused on ourselves in maybe not a positive way. So maybe the way I'll kind of look at it for today. We're kind of, it's kind of like we're putting ourselves down in a sense, or like we need to do more. But that's not exactly it. It's more a matter of when we take the action and what action needs to be taken at certain times. You see, because what I see in the many people that I've coached and I've worked with, and even in my own life, is that when we are in the moment of making a decision, and if we don't trust ourselves yet, we're automatically going to defer to an externalized source. And this is something that majority of us have learned throughout life. It's kind of how we've been conditioned, programmed, however you might want to look at it, at a young age. And so we start to develop these ways in which we respond and we behave, essentially. And so as we go throughout life, this just kind of becomes an automatic pathway. It's kind of like the highway we drive down. So someone says, hey, you want to go for dinner? We're going down that driveway to answer the question. Rather than flexing our own internal muscles, listening to ourselves and that sort of thing. So what happens throughout the course is really that our decision making tends to become externalized through family, friends, society, more than ourselves. And so there's that disconnect and really trusting ourselves in our decision makings when we are faced with, say, a decision from an external source. So as an example, say a friend asks, hey, do you want to go bowling this weekend? But you don't want to go bowling, but in that moment you feel pressure to respond. You feel the pressure of the social dynamics. You feel pressure to be appealing to your friend. You don't want to break the friendship, so you say yes. And that's natural. That's just kind of how it goes when we're letting the decisions be externalized rather than internalized. Just to kind of give an idea, right? So it's not lack of insight, it's really just misplaced authority is what happens. And when we're in that moment, there's a variety of factors that can happen that can influence us to what I say defer the authority to the external. And, there's nothing wrong with that. It's right now we're developing the awareness, we're figuring it out as we go. And so when we have that moment where we can do that, that's where in the next little while we can start to decide if we want to make a different decision or not. And so while we're in that moment, right, just to share, like maybe you had a stressful day, so it's easier to say yes, or maybe you're just already kind of burnt out, or you're just already in that mode where it's been a long day. It's easier just to say yes. There's a variety of different things that can come in to make that decision easier to follow the known path rather than choose what's new for us in that alignment piece there, right? So there is a fair amount that kind of goes under the surface here. There could potentially also be shame or guilt or the fear of uncertainty, the loss, maybe, that's going to impact your social standing, all these variety of things that can kind of come in that moment that may influence us to make a decision that, as I'm saying, is externalized. The authority is not our own. So just remember here that as we are growing through this process, it's not the lack of insight, it's the misplaced authority. And so what happens over time as we develop this, as I call the highway of decision making, right? That's kind of, if we step back for a second, stop and talk about like our neural pathways and that sort of things, it's basically, the actions we take repeat, and it develops more neuronal robustness, I guess. So that's the kind of the path of least resistance. So to get off that path takes effort, takes a bit of consciousness, takes a bit of awareness to really break away and develop a new highway essentially for our operating, for our decision making and that sort of thing. And so over time, what is really happening is we're losing our ability to trust our inner knowing, if we ever had it at all. And so that's really, really important, is like once we already have the insights, the knowledge, we know who we are, the next challenge is actually starting to trust that. And for me, it took a bit of time, to be quite honest with you, to really start to lean in and trust it. I made some experiments to start to figure it out, but that's kind of where the playground is, right? Is starting to play in the space, figure out how you start to learn and trust yourself, and listen to, and like also figuring out what is the voice? How does the voice speak to you? Is it an internal instantaneous kind of thing? Is it a bodily sensation? Do you need to talk it out? Like these are a variety of different ways that people can come to their own conclusions, but if we're not honoring those, then we may not be honoring our own self in that moment. So in this situation, it's really the loss of the ability to hear how we communicate with ourselves. And so sometimes this actually comes across in I think it's a Japanese proverb where where they say we wear 3 masks. I'm not going to go right into it, but just for the sake of argument here, you're wearing one mask when you're by yourself, and then another mask when you're in a social situation. So sometimes when we've had that external mask developed, we want to maintain that mask, and so we don't want to deviate or cause anything to erode that, right? And so we'll wear that mask, but over time, that's going to lead, as I mentioned, to erosion of your self-trust. It might lead to shame, guilt, disconnection. You may not feel connected with yourself anymore. And this is going to lead you to being in a stressed state. And then eventually it's going to lead to health problems. Not a doctor, just sharing what I've seen, what I understand about the body and how things work. So by acting out of alignment can have more drastic consequences than we really realize. And I just want to remind you, this is nothing that you've done wrong. It's something that we're learning and we're getting better at. So what I want to really reframe here is that you don't need to be, it's not that you have lack of insight or anything like that, right? It's misplaced authority. So really what that comes down to is when you don't trust your inner knowing, alignment isn't missing, it's just quiet. And so that's the gap. That's the gap of knowing who we are and living in alignment, is learning to trust in that moment and know that that's who you are. And so one of the problems that I kind of see with this, right, when we're not honoring that, we're just not trusting ourselves, and that we're looking at it as more of a it's an us thing, is because what happens a lot of time is we act in a way to avoid unpleasant feelings. And I'm here to tell you, feelings are they're neutral. Feelings are good and bad. They're signals, right? That's how I look at feelings. They're signaling whether something's going the right way or something's a little bit off, or if we need to listen and do something different. Emotions are signal points for us. But a lot of times what people will do is they'll start to feel like they're unsatisfied, or they don't feel good. So rather than listening to the feeling, they try to take action to remove the feeling. And usually the action they take is not the one that's going to help them remove the feeling in the long term, right? It's all about short-term satisfaction in these moments. So then it could be a variety of things: food, drugs, music, not as bad, but like little things just to kind of say, hey, I know I'm not feeling great because I'm not living the life I want, but I'm going to do this really quick and it's going to make things okay for right now. So it's really you're just kind of masking the situation as well that you're currently living in. And that I'm here to tell you that if you want to live in alignment, that's not the approach to take. We need to be willing to listen to those feelings. We need to be willing to allow them to be there. We need to allow the emotion to persist in order for us to really be able to synthesize it, learn what it's trying to tell us, and then move on. The more that we listen to our emotions, the more in tune we're going to become with them, our body, our decision making, and we're going to start to be better at knowing what's best for us. But it all starts with having the courage to explore that emotion, allow the emotion to sit, and to not be in a rush to make the emotion leave. Very, very key. So bringing it back here, when you don't trust your inner knowing, the alignment isn't missing, it's just quiet. It's not gone, it's not unavailable, it's just inaudible. You're just not able to hear it yet. And that's the missing piece that might be if you're struggling with yourself, but you're not acting fully in alignment yet. It's the trust in the self, learning how to listen to the self. And as you do that, the alignment's going to start coming as you start to make the decisions in alignment with what's best for you and how you want to live your life. So just to kind of reflect on the loop that happens, right? So we've got the insights, but we don't have the trust in ourselves. So really what that leads to is there's no embodied action. It leads to understanding yourself, making decisions that aren't in alignment, and then afterwards maybe some shame, some guilt, whatever it is, because you didn't make the choice that you feel or thought you should have made in that moment. But remember, there's the pressure from the external sources. If we are externalizing our authority, then at the end of the day, they are the ones that are kind of leading the authority and the decision making in the moment. Okay, so understand that loop, and it's nothing negative about you, which is how we get programmed and conditioned. And then the more that we do this, the more that we erode our own trust in ourselves. So that's kind of the loop. That's why the longer we go without acting in alignment, it takes a bit hard. It takes longer because it's harder. It's hard because we don't have that trust in ourselves yet, and it takes a lot of courage and willingness and boldness and just trust in yourself, ironically, to start to make these small little actions. And until we start taking the small actions to listen to ourselves, to build that self-trust, the knowing of ourselves stays intellectual. It's all in our head. It's not embodied. It's not lived yet. And so that's what I'm sharing with you here is like when we start to trust our inner knowing, that's when we can really start to live in an embodied way. We can really feel our way through life. And that's one of the missing pieces that I see with a lot of people right now. So I just want to remind you that it's not a matter of why can't you act or anything of that nature there. It's a matter of just noticing who you're listening to in the moment and allow that to shift for yourself. So for now, as we've been discussing lately, if something resonated, amazing, just let it sit. We don't need to act right now. Right now, we're just working on the awareness piece and getting an understanding of where the disconnect may be. Where's the gap? And if this resonated with you today, fantastic. I hope this really helps you move forward. If you know anybody else that might be able to benefit from it, fantastic. Maybe you can share with them. But if not, I just really hope that you got a takeaway for you today that's going to allow you to start to make the shift into knowing yourself, into living embodied with who you truly are. Have a great day. Before you go, I want to invite you to slow down for a moment and notice what stood out for you in this episode. There's nothing to do with it, no insight to apply, no conclusion to reach. Just notice what stayed with you. A phrase, a feeling, or a moment that felt familiar in your body. Sometimes the most important shifts don't happen through action, but through allowing something to be seen and felt. Thanks for taking this time for yourself. I'll see you next time.